Emily Carter had always been a person who valued humility and modesty over flaunting her wealth. As the daughter of a wealthy hotel magnate, she'd grown up in luxury but had never let it define her. To her, life was more about experiences and connections than brand names or lavish appearances. However, that simplicity often led people to underestimate her. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emily decided to take a short break from her studies and visit one of her father's flagship hotels, the Grand Lux. The sprawling property was renowned for its elegance, top-notch service, and a reputation as a sanctuary for the elite. For Emily, however, it was simply a second home, a place she'd visited countless times with her family, where she knew every hallway and corner like the back of her hand. Instead of alerting her father or the hotel management of her arrival, Emily chose to check in as any regular guest would. She didn't want special treatment or attention. She wanted to experience the hotel as others did. Dressed in her favorite pair of faded jeans, an oversized sweater, and comfortable sneakers, she walked into the opulent lobby with her single suitcase in tow. The Grand Lux was breathtaking as always. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and a towering arrangement of fresh flowers dominated the center of the room. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and lavender, the signature scent of the hotel. Wealthy travelers bustled about, many escorted by attentive bellhops. Emily approached the reception desk, her warm smile and relaxed demeanor starkly contrasting with the grandeur surrounding her. Behind the desk stood Linda, a middle-aged woman with perfectly styled hair, a sharp suit, and an even sharper attitude. Linda prided herself on catering to the right kind of guests, those who exuded wealth and status. She could spot them a mile away, and Emily, with her unassuming appearance, didn't make the cut. Linda glanced at Emily briefly before returning to her computer screen, her expression flat. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone laced with boredom. "Yes, I have a reservation," Emily replied, sliding her ID across the desk. "The name is Emily Carter." Linda's perfectly plucked eyebrows raised slightly at the name. "Carter, She typed quickly into her system and, after a moment, gave Emily a scrutinizing look. "We've got you here for 3 nights. Standard room." Emily nodded, unfazed. "That's correct." Linda's lips curved into a thin smile, but there was a hint of condescension in her gaze. "Standard room it is." Her fingers moved swiftly on the keyboard, and she handed Emily a keycard without making eye contact. "Room 317, 3rd floor." "Thank you," Emily said politely. She glanced at Linda, wondering why the woman seemed so dismissive, but decided not to dwell on it. As Emily wheeled her suitcase toward the elevators, Linda leaned toward her coworker, a younger receptionist named Sophie, and whispered, "Did you see her?" "Carter," she said. "Probably one of those trust fund kids who blew all their money on thrift store fashion." Sophie frowned. "Linda, you shouldn't say things like that. You never know who someone might be." Linda waved her off. "Please, I know exactly who belongs here and who doesn't. She's not the type." Upstairs, Emily found room 317, but her excitement quickly faded when she opened the door. The room was small and underwhelming, with a musty odor lingering in the air. The furniture, while functional, was outdated, and the view from the window overlooked a parking lot rather than the hotel's picturesque gardens. Emily frowned. She had stayed at her father's hotel before and knew this was far from the standard of luxury the Grand Lux prided itself on. Still, she decided not to make a fuss. She unpacked her belongings and settled in, reminding herself that she had chosen this experience for its authenticity. However, as the hours passed, the discomfort grew. The air conditioner made an irritating rattling noise, and the Wi-Fi signal was weak, making it difficult for her to catch up on her emails. Frustrated, Emily decided to address the issues at the reception desk. Linda was still stationed there, her posture straight and her expression as indifferent as before. When Emily approached, Linda's eyes flicked to her outfit, and her lips curled slightly. "Yes? What is it now?" "Hi," Emily began calmly. "I was wondering if there might be a different room available? The one I was assigned has a few issues." Linda cut her off with a tight smile. "I'm sorry," But we're fully booked. There's nothing else available. Emily blinked. Really? Fully booked? Even for an upgrade? Yes, ma'am. Fully booked. Linda's tone was curt, almost dismissive. She didn't even glance at her computer to check. Emily felt a twinge of irritation but remained polite. I understand. Thank you anyway. As Emily walked away, she overheard Linda mutter under her breath. Some people expect 5-star treatment when they barely look like they belong in a motel. That comment stung. Emily wasn't one to let rude remarks get to her. But this was different. She had never experienced such blatant judgment at her father's hotel. It wasn't just about the room. It was about how Linda had sized her up and dismissed her entirely based on appearances. Later that evening, Emily decided to dine at the hotel's fine dining restaurant. She hoped the meal would lift her spirits, but when she approached the hostess stand, Linda appeared again. This time, she wasn't behind the desk but chatting with the restaurant staff. She spotted Emily and smirked. Dinner reservations are highly recommended, Linda said loudly as Emily approached. We wouldn't want anyone to feel out of place. Emily clenched her jaw, her patience wearing thin. I have a reservation, she replied, keeping her voice steady. Linda raised an eyebrow but said nothing further. As Emily was shown to her table, she could feel Linda's mocking gaze following her. It was as though the receptionist had made it her mission to ensure Emily's stay was anything but pleasant. Despite everything, Emily resolved to maintain her composure. She wasn't ready to reveal her identity or pull rank. Instead, she decided to observe and let the situation play out. After all, she believed in karma, and if Linda continued treating guests this way, it was only a matter of time before she faced the consequences of her actions. The next morning, Emily woke up determined to make the most of her stay, even if her first day hadn't gone as planned. She decided to explore the hotel's facilities and spend some time enjoying the amenities. After all, the Grand Lux was famous for its luxurious spa, state-of-the-art gym, and world-class pools. Perhaps, she thought, a relaxing morning could turn her experience around. She dressed in casual activewear, tied her hair into a ponytail, and headed down to the gym. The space was every bit as elegant as she remembered. High ceilings, expansive windows overlooking the gardens, and rows of gleaming exercise equipment. A few guests were already working out, their trainers offering tips and encouragement. Emily began her workout but couldn't help noticing Linda passing by the gym's glass doors. The receptionist's sharp eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Emily before she walked off with her nose slightly upturned. It was as if Linda were looking for any opportunity to scrutinize her. Emily sighed but shrugged it off. She wasn't going to let a rude receptionist ruin her day. After her workout, Emily decided to treat herself to a spa appointment. The Grand Lux Spa was one of the most sought-after facilities in the city, and Emily was eager to experience its renowned services. However, when she approached the spa desk to book a session, she noticed Linda standing nearby, chatting with the spa manager. "Oh, look who it is," Linda said loudly as Emily approached, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Back for more requests?" Emily ignored the remark and smiled at the spa receptionist. "Hi, I'd like to book a massage session for later today." The spa receptionist began checking the schedule, but Linda couldn't resist interjecting. "You might want to check our prices first. Spa services here can be premium." The insinuation was clear, and it struck a nerve. Emily kept her expression neutral but could feel her frustration building. "Thank you for the advice, but I'll be fine." Linda smirked but said nothing more. The spa receptionist confirmed Emily's appointment, and she left the desk, trying to shake off the interaction. However, it was becoming harder and harder to ignore Linda's attitude. Emily couldn't understand why the woman seemed so intent on undermining her at every turn. Later that afternoon, Emily decided to have lunch at the hotel's poolside cafe. The sun was shining, the water sparkled under the clear blue sky, and the atmosphere was light and cheerful. Emily ordered a refreshing drink and a salad, planning to enjoy a peaceful meal while catching up on some reading. As she sat at her table, she noticed Linda again. This time, the receptionist was near the pool area, speaking animatedly with a group of other staff members. Emily tried to focus on her book, but she couldn't ignore the glances Linda kept throwing in her direction. It wasn't long before she overheard snippets of their conversation. "Can you believe some people come here pretending they can afford this place?" Linda said, her voice loud enough for Emily to hear. "It's almost embarrassing." One of the staff members shifted uncomfortably, glancing in Emily's direction. "Linda, maybe you should keep it down. She might hear you." Linda scoffed. "Oh, please. She probably doesn't even realize I'm talking about her." Emily set her book down, her appetite suddenly gone. She had tried to brush off Linda's behavior as simple rudeness, but this was something else entirely. It was personal. The receptionist seemed to have singled her out, making assumptions about her character and treating her with blatant disrespect. Emily considered confronting Linda but decided against it. She didn't want to escalate the situation without a good reason. That evening, Emily returned to her room to find that some of her requests for service hadn't been fulfilled. The towels she'd asked for earlier in the day were missing, and the room hadn't been cleaned. When she called housekeeping to inquire, she was told that the receptionist had marked her requests as non-urgent. Emily couldn't believe it. It was clear now that Linda was going out of her way to make her stay uncomfortable. Determined to address the issue, Emily headed back to the reception desk. Linda was there, of course, her expression as smug as ever. "Good evening," Emily began, keeping her tone polite but firm. "I noticed that some of my service requests weren't addressed. I'd like to know why." Linda leaned casually against the desk, her smile insincere. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but as I mentioned earlier, we're quite busy, and sometimes we have to prioritize certain guests." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Prioritize certain guests? Isn't everyone supposed to receive the same level of service here?" Linda's smile faltered for a moment before she regained her composure. "Of course, ma'am, but you know how it is. Some guests have more urgent needs." The implication was clear, and it made Emily's blood boil. Still, she refused to lose her temper. "Thank you for clarifying," she said coolly. "I'll be sure to address this with management." Linda's smirk returned. "You're welcome to do that, ma'am, but I'm sure they're as busy as we are." That night, Emily sat in her room, reflecting on everything that had happened. She couldn't understand why Linda was so determined to belittle her. Was it jealousy, prejudice, or just a habit of mistreating people she deemed unworthy? Whatever the reason, Emily knew she couldn't let it continue. The next day, Emily decided to take matters into her own hands. She called her father, Mr. Carter, and explained the situation. While she hadn't initially wanted to involve him, she realized that Linda's behavior wasn't just about her. It was a reflection of the hotel's service, and it needed to be addressed. Mr. Carter listened carefully, his voice calm but firm. "Emily, I'm glad you told me. This kind of behavior is unacceptable, and it's not what we stand for. I'll handle it." Emily felt a wave of relief but also a sense of curiosity. How would her father handle the situation? Would Linda finally be held accountable for her actions? For now, Emily decided to wait and see. Unbeknownst to Linda, her days of unchecked arrogance were about to come to an end. The next morning, the lobby of the Grand Lux was abuzz with activity. A high-profile event was scheduled to take place that weekend, and staff members were working tirelessly to ensure everything was perfect. Guests filtered in and out of the reception area, some checking in and others discussing their plans for the day. Linda, as usual, stood at her post, her sharp gaze darting from one guest to another, her demeanor a mix of efficiency and condescension. Emily, however, had other plans for the day. After her conversation with her father the night before, she decided to carry on with her routine as if nothing had happened. She knew her father well enough to trust that he would take care of things. For now, she wanted to observe Linda's behavior further and see if anything changed. Around mid-morning, Mr. Carter arrived at the hotel. He was a tall, composed man in his early 50s, his presence commanding without being overbearing. Dressed in a sharp suit, he blended seamlessly with the hotel's upscale environment. Though he was the owner of the Grand Lux chain, He often preferred to visit his properties unannounced to get a genuine sense of how they operated. He approached the reception desk quietly, scanning the room with a discerning eye. Linda, engrossed in her computer screen, didn't notice him at first. When she finally looked up, her expression was one of polite indifference, the same she gave most guests she deemed unimportant. "Good morning," Mr. Carter said, his voice calm but authoritative. "I'd like to inquire about room availability." Linda gave him a quick once-over, noting his tailored suit but mistaking him for a corporate traveler. "Of course, sir," she replied, her tone brisk. "Do you have a reservation?" "I don't," he admitted. "I was hoping to book something for the weekend." Linda sighed almost imperceptibly, her fingers tapping on the keyboard. "We're quite busy this weekend, but I can check if we have anything available. Standard rooms might be all that's left." As she worked, Mr. Carter observed her closely. There was no warmth in her demeanor, no genuine attempt to make him feel welcome. Instead, she seemed to be going through the motions, her professionalism marred by a subtle but undeniable air of superiority. "Actually," he said after a moment, "I'd like to speak with the manager on duty. Would that be possible?" Linda looked up sharply, her expression flickering with suspicion. "Is there a specific issue you'd like to address?" "Yes," he said evenly, "but I'd prefer to discuss it with the manager." Linda hesitated, then reluctantly called the manager on duty, a younger man named Daniel who had recently been promoted. When Daniel arrived, he greeted Mr. Carter warmly, unaware of his true identity. "Good morning, sir. How can I assist you today?" Daniel asked. Mr. Carter gestured toward a quieter corner of the lobby. "Let's speak privately." In their brief meeting, Mr. Carter introduced himself and explained the purpose of his visit. Daniel's face paled slightly as he realized the significance of the situation. Mr. Carter didn't just own the hotel. He embodied its values and standards. Any shortcomings in service were a direct reflection on him. "I want to address a recurring issue with one of your staff members," Mr. Carter said. "Specifically, the way guests are being treated at the reception desk." Daniel nodded, listening intently as Mr. Carter outlined Emily's experience and the numerous complaints that had been relayed to him. Though Emily hadn't explicitly mentioned other incidents, Mr. Carter had done his research and discovered a pattern of grievances involving Linda. "I'll handle this personally," Daniel assured him. "Linda's behavior is unacceptable, and I'll make sure it's addressed immediately." Mr. Carter shook his head. "Not yet. I want to see how she interacts with other guests and staff today. Let's give her one last chance to demonstrate her professionalism, or lack thereof." Daniel agreed, and the two men devised a plan to observe Linda discreetly throughout the day. As the hours passed, Linda continued her usual routine, oblivious to the fact that she was being watched. Emily, too, kept a low profile, but she couldn't help but notice how her father's presence changed the atmosphere. The staff seemed more alert, their interactions more polished. Linda, however, remained the same. When a young couple approached the desk to check in, Linda greeted them with her signature cold smile. "Names, please?" she asked, her tone devoid of warmth. The couple, clearly excited about their stay, provided their information and asked if there was a possibility of an upgrade. Linda barely glanced at her screen before replying, "We're fully booked. You're in a standard room." The man looked disappointed but didn't argue. As they walked away, Linda rolled her eyes and muttered under her breath, "Everyone wants an upgrade these days." Emily, standing nearby, exchanged a knowing glance with her father, who had witnessed the interaction from across the room. It was clear that Linda's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. The breaking point came later that afternoon when an elderly couple approached the desk. They seemed flustered and a bit out of their depth in the luxury setting. The woman explained that they were celebrating their anniversary and had saved up for this trip, but there was a problem with their reservation. Linda listened impatiently, cutting them off mid-sentence. "If you didn't book through the proper channels, there's nothing I can do. You'll have to contact whoever made your reservation." "But the man began, only to be interrupted again. "I don't have time to fix every mistake guests make," Linda snapped, her tone dripping with irritation. Emily, watching from a nearby seating area, felt her blood boil. Before she could intervene, Mr. Carter stepped forward. "Is this how you treat all your guests?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Linda turned, startled by the sudden interruption. "Excuse me?" she said, trying to mask her annoyance. "I said," Mr. Carter repeated. "Is this how you treat all your guests? Or is it just these two?" Linda's face flushed, and for a moment, she was at a loss for words. I didn't realize you were listening," she stammered. "That much is clear," he said. "But I've been listening all day, and what I've heard is unacceptable." Before Linda could respond, Daniel approached with a group of senior staff members. "Linda," he said, his tone grave, "we need to talk." In the privacy of a meeting room, Linda's behavior was laid bare. Mr. Carter explained who he was and detailed everything he had observed. Linda's excuses fell flat as other staff members came forward with their own accounts of her rudeness and unprofessionalism. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Linda's actions had not only violated the hotel's standards but also tarnished its reputation. Mr. Carter made the decision to terminate her employment, effective immediately. "This hotel was built on the principle of treating every guest with dignity and respect," he said. "If you can't uphold those values, you have no place here." Linda left the room in silence, her once confident demeanor shattered. For Emily, the moment was bittersweet. She hadn't wanted to see anyone lose their job, but she knew it was the right decision. As the day came to an end, Mr. Carter gathered the staff to address them. "Let this be a reminder," he said, "that every guest who walks through our doors deserves the best we can offer. It's not just about luxury. It's about kindness, respect, and making people feel valued." Emily couldn't help but feel a swell of pride as she watched her father speak. The turning point had arrived, and justice had been served. The day after Linda's dismissal, the atmosphere at the Grand Lux felt noticeably lighter. The staff, though still busy with the weekend's events, worked with a renewed sense of camaraderie. Emily walked through the lobby that morning, observing the friendly interactions between employees and guests. Without Linda's harsh presence, the hotel seemed to have regained its warmth and welcoming charm. Emily was in awe of her father's leadership. He hadn't just dealt with Linda's unprofessional behavior, he'd taken the opportunity to inspire the entire team to do better. However, Mr. Carter wasn't done yet. He had one final lesson to impart, a moment that would solidify the values upon which the Grand Lux had been built. That evening, the hotel hosted a celebratory dinner for the elderly couple whose reservation issues had brought Linda's behavior to light. Mr. Carter personally invited them to enjoy an all-expenses-paid stay in the hotel's best suite for the remainder of their visit. The dinner was held in the Grand Lux's luxurious dining hall, a breathtaking space adorned with chandeliers, soft golden lighting, and elegant floral arrangements. Emily joined her father in greeting the couple as they arrived. The woman's eyes glistened with tears as she thanked Mr. Carter for his kindness. "We've never experienced anything like this," she said, her voice trembling. "This anniversary will be one we'll never forget." Mr. Carter smiled warmly. "You deserve it. Every guest here is part of our family, and we're honored to celebrate with you." As the evening progressed, Emily noticed how the staff rallied together to ensure everything went smoothly. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, the chefs prepared exquisite dishes, and even the hotel musicians seemed to play with extra heart. It was a powerful reminder of what the Grand Lux stood for, a place where every detail was designed to make people feel special. Meanwhile, word of Linda's termination had spread among the staff. While some expressed surprise, many admitted that her behavior had been a long-standing issue. She had potential, one of the senior employees confided to Emily, but she let her ego get in the way. She thought being strict and condescending made her look professional, but all it did was alienate people. Emily reflected on this as she sipped her drink. It was a valuable lesson in leadership and humility. The most effective professionals, she realized, were those who could balance confidence with kindness. Though Linda's departure was necessary, Emily couldn't help but wonder what had led her to act the way she did. Perhaps she'd been under personal stress or had never been taught the importance of empathy. Whatever the case, Emily hoped that the experience would be a turning point for Linda, too, a chance to grow and change for the better. The next day, Emily decided to spend some quiet time by the pool. As she lounged under a sun umbrella, sipping on a refreshing iced tea, she reflected on her stay. What had started as a frustrating experience had turned into something much more meaningful. She felt proud, not just of her father but of herself for standing up for what was right. A young staff member approached her with a bright smile. "Miss Emily, would you like anything else? Another drink? A snack?" Emily shook her head, returning the smile. "I'm good, thank you." The interaction reminded her of something her father had said during their conversation. Small acts of kindness go a long way. It was clear that the staff now embodied this philosophy, and it made all the difference. As she prepared to leave the pool, Emily spotted the young couple who had checked in the day before, the ones Linda had dismissed without a second thought. They looked relaxed and happy, enjoying their breakfast at a nearby table. Emily caught their eye and gave them a friendly wave, which they returned with smiles. It was a subtle but poignant moment. The hotel wasn't just a place to stay. It was a place to create memories, to feel cared for, and to be treated like family. Before checking out of the Grand Lux, Emily joined her father for one final meeting with the staff. Mr. Carter wanted to personally thank everyone for their hard work and to remind them of the values that made the hotel so successful. "As we move forward," he said, addressing the room, "I want each of you to remember what makes the Grand Lux special. It's not just the marble floors or the fine dining. It's the way we make people feel. Whether it's their first stay or their 10th, every guest should leave here with a story they can cherish." The room erupted into applause, and Emily couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Her father's words resonated deeply, not just with the staff but with her as well. It was a reminder that leadership wasn't about authority. It was about setting an example, inspiring others, and creating an environment where everyone could thrive. As Emily and her father left the hotel, she couldn't help but think about how karma had played its part. Linda's actions had consequences, but so did Mr. Carter's kindness and Emily's courage to speak up. The story was a testament to the idea that justice doesn't always come in grand gestures. It often comes in the form of quiet, meaningful changes that ripple through people's lives. If you enjoyed this story of karma, justice, and the power of kindness, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more tales that remind us of the good in the world. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next story.